everybody, and welcome back to the Cyclonic Thrift channel. We've got a fun, exciting new commander for you today from the recently released Murders at Karlov Manor set. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. It's the Pride of Clade. It's 10 and a green for a legendary creature, Crocodile Elk Turtle, which makes absolutely no sense until you can see the art on this card. I don't know what kind of alchemist lab they brewed this up in, but this thing is a beast. It's a 2/15, and it costs X less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. It has Defender, pretty classic, and it has a ability where you pay 2 and 2 blue, and until end of turn, target creature you control gets +1/+0, gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to its toughness, and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So it's pretty easy to see right off the bat the direction that this deck wants to go. We are going to get a ton of big booty creatures out on the battlefield. Creatures with high toughness. Doesn't matter what their power is, but we want high toughness. And this ability is going to get us a ton of card draw. Not to mention, we've got a lot of different ways to manipulate how our creatures are going to deal damage. We're going to be able to kind of flip power and toughness, or deal damage equal to its toughness. We're going to be able to have some shenanigans with those creatures, but this card on its face is a super fun take on Defender Tribal. Being able to get a bunch of creatures out that you don't normally see in Commander, just because Commander is a very damage-centered format, and so having a lot of creatures that don't have a lot of power is kind of the antithesis of the strategies. But this really turns that on its head and does it in a really fun, really unique way. Kind of like how unique a Crocodile Elk Turtle is. I don't even know how you'd combine the anatomy of a reptile and a mammal, but they did it, and good for them. But let's get into some of the cards here. First category is super simple. Again, creatures with high toughness, right? So cards like Aegis Turtle, it's 1 blue for a turtle, it's 0/5, right? We get this down turn 1. It's an excellent blocker. It's going to block basically anything on the ground that an opponent could get out in the first 4 or 5 turns. And later in the game, it doesn't have Defender, so it can attack, and later in the game, we might be able to activate the Pride's ability, draw 5 cards out of this. Even paying 4, drawing 5 is an insane rate, so it's a perfect fit into this deck. Second one's a little bit more complicated. We've got Charix, the Raging Isle, 2 and 2 blue for a 0/17 Leviathan Crab. So first, spells your opponents cast that target Charix, the Raging Isle, cost 2 more to cast. Kind of like Ward 2, but actually better, because Ward only just counters a spell that targets Charix. So if they cast a spell that can't be countered, then it gets around Ward. This gets around that ability, and that in order to even target Charix, you have to pay 2 more. And then Charix also has the ability to pay 3, and it gets +X, -X until end of turn, where X is the number of islands you control. Now, obviously in a mono blue strategy, right, this could be a lot more impactful. You get 10 islands down here, you swing in, pay 3. Charix ends up being a 10/7, massive beater. With us being in Simic, we'll still have plenty of islands for sure, to the point where we won't have, Charix won't be swinging in for 0. But that 17 toughness is really what we're impressed with here. Again, the paying 4 with the Pride's ability, drawing 17 cards, absolutely insane. And it's a wonderful, wonderful blocker for most of the game. And then we also have Colossus of Akros. He's an 8 mana 10/10 golem, defender and indestructible, and then has monstrosity 10, right? So if you can pay 10 mana to make it monstrous, you put 10 +1/+1 counters on it, and then once it's monstrous, it has trample and can attack as though it didn't have defender. So turns it into a 20/20. It's just big, really just big. It's big, indestructible, and if you do manage to get it monstrous and again activate the ability, draw 20 cards, it'll be a 20/20 with trample at that point. It's just going to be a huge beater. It can win you the game on its own. And so I think it's worth keeping in the deck. And so this next section, we obviously have a ton more cards with lots of toughness. That is not a shortage of in this deck. But this next section, I want to talk about cards that kind of help minimize the negative side of having defender creatures to give us more options, really, on how to take down a game. So the first is Walking Bulwark. It's a 1 mana 0/3 golem with defender. So already on the top, it fits into the flavor of the deck. And it also has the ability, you pay 2, and until end of turn, target creature with defender gains haste, can attack as though it didn't have defender, and assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And you activate this only as a sorcery. So this is an insane ability for just 2 mana. In a deck that's full of creatures with defender, you're going to be able to get this off, and you're going to be able to hit a lot of people really hard with this. It targets the commander right off the bat. It would hit Colossus of Akros. It would hit the Aegis Turtle, like we just talked about. This was very close to being the Thrift pick for the deck, just to give you a heads up. This is an excellent card in this deck. Really excited to see the work that it puts in. Second card is actually an equipment. It's a Warmonger's Chariot. It's a 2 mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. And as long as equipped creature has defender, it can attack as though it didn't have defender. And then you can equip it for 3. So this is much simpler, right? It just kind of removes the defender keyword from your creatures, allows them to attack. And then finally we've got Assault Formation. It's 1 and a green for an enchantment. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So, beautiful, right? We are loving this. For our creatures without defender, we're able to attack in for a ton of damage. I mean, Charix automatically becomes a 17/17 with this card. Absolutely insane. And also, you can pay a green. Target creature with defender can attack this turn as though it didn't have defender. So, again, removing the defender keyword from your creatures. And then you pay 2 and a green, and creatures you control get +0/+1 until end of turn. That ability, a little less impactful. I don't know why they decided to throw that on there. We would absolutely take this card for the top 2 abilities. We would take this card at 4 mana for the top 2 abilities. I mean, it is absolutely insane. And so we're very excited for this card. So this next category is a little bit of a wild card category. It's cards that take advantage of the fact that we're playing creatures with low power and high toughness, right? I mean, that's basically the entire deck. We want to get some value out of that, right? Outside of our commander's ability, we want to be able to play these cards, and if our commander gets removed, still get some value out of them, right? So the first one here is Imperious Mindbreaker, 1 and 2 blue for a 1/4 human wizard. Again, that 1/4 still high toughness, still loving it. Has Soul Bond, so essentially how Soul Bond works is when this creature enters the battlefield, you pick it and another creature, and they're soul bonded, until you decide to soul bond it to a different creature, and you can do that whenever you play another creature, right? So it's a super flexible ability. But it's important because the second ability here is as long as Imperious Mindbreaker is paired with another creature each of those creatures has, whenever this creature attacks, each opponent mills cards equal to its toughness. So, yeah, I don't think you'll really ever necessarily mill out anybody unless they're already doing like a self-mill strategy. But again, you get Charix out here, you get your commander out here, and you pair him with Imperious, you attack, each opponent's milling 20 plus cards. That's insane. Like, that is an absolutely insane. It does put them on a bit of a turn clock from that perspective. So, again, I mean, that's not the focus of the deck. We're not looking to mill anybody out, but this is a very nice side benefit of playing all these creatures with high toughness. Next card is Verdant Sun's Avatar. It's 5 and 2 green for a 5/5 dinosaur avatar. Whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So this is purely life gain. Again, yeah, we're playing creatures with big butts. We're going to gain a ton of life out of them. That's really all this is. It itself, it's a 5/5. In terms of toughness, it's nothing that breaks the bank, but we're going to be able to gain 10, 15 life out of this thing pretty consistently, and for not that much mana. So this is going to save you in a lot of games with this ability. And then finally, we've got a Zuri Claw of Progress. It's 2 green and blue for a 3/3 Phyrexian Elf Warrior. Another fun combo. Whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you have. So this is super simple, right? A lot of our creatures have super high toughness and super low power. Power 2 or less. There are very few creatures in this deck that have greater than 2 power, other than Verdant Sun's Avatar, obviously, but that is kind of an outlier. Yeah, we're going to get a ton of experience counters out of this. We're going to buff up our already massive toughness creatures, draw even more cards, mill even more cards, all that good stuff. Yeah, Azuri's a very fun commander, right, to kind of build a deck around. But I also think, in a fun way, fits really well into this deck because we just have so few creatures with power greater than 2. And that brings us to the veggie portion of the deck. For those of you who haven't seen the channel before, the veggie portion is when I talk about some groups of cards that fall into 3 categories. That's mana ramp, card draw, and removal. And in every one of these videos, I say you gotta eat your veggies if you're building budget. It is super important that you make sure you have plenty of cards in each of these categories. It's gonna help keep your deck running consistently. Game in and game out, and help you kind of keep pace with the higher budget, higher value decks that you're playing against that just have access to better cards, right? There's no getting around that. So what we lack in over-the-top power, we have to make up for in consistency, and these 3 categories are how you do that. So to start with the mana ramp, we have cards like Omen Hawker. It's a 1 blue for a 1/1 Cephalid Advisor. Taps to add a colorless and a blue. Spend this mana only to activate abilities. So it fits perfectly with our commander, right? Takes care of half the cost anyway. And we actually have a ton of other creatures that also have those activated abilities, right? So Walking Bulwark works for this. Charix works for this. Colossus of Akros for the Monstrosity ability. So you will have options for this. You'll get it down early and you might have to wait a few turns to really get anything out of it, but once you do, that 2 mana is going to come in real handy. We also have Overgrown Battlement. It's 1 and a green for a 0/4 wall with Defender. So right off the bat, again, very flavorful in this deck. We've got the high toughness, we've got the Defender, and you can tap to add green for each creature with Defender you control. We've got tons of Defender creatures in this deck. Wouldn't be surprised if this thing hits for 4, 5, 6 pretty consistently, and it's just going to ramp you into the rest of your strategy. And we've got Axebane Guardian. It's 2 and a green for a 0/3 Human Druid with Defender, basically the same thing. And you add X mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool, where X is the number of creatures with Defender you control. So basically exactly like Overgrown Battlement, except this we can create green and blue, just giving us a little bit more versatility. Still fits in with the flavor of the deck. Pretty automatic include for this deck. And then moving on to card draw, we've got Wall of Mulch. It's 1 and a green for a 0/4 wall with Defender. Again, fits into the flavor. You can pay green and sacrifice a wall to draw a card. We've got a few walls in here. Here's the thing. With our commander, with that massive card draw ability on the card already, we're going to have no problem getting off 1 or 2 of those massive card pulls from our library, where we're drawing 10 to 15 cards in one go. What we don't have access to is the little card draws here and there, right? Where we want to be consistently bringing cards back into our hand, refilling our hand. Not in the way where we're just grabbing a whole bunch, but the more consistent ones that we can repeat over and over again. So this is one of them, right? You obviously don't want to sacrifice all your creatures all at once, but in a pinch, sacrificing 1 or 2 to draw 2 cards, not a problem at all, and something that's going to be really helpful. And then we've got Lifecrafter's Bestiary. It's 3 mana for an artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. And whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay green. And if you do, you draw a card. And then we have Harmonize. It's 2 and 2 green for sorcery. Draw 3 cards. Super simple. Again, we're in this section, we're focusing on more of the like smaller card draw instances that we can do 1, 2, 3 cards at a time, and then saving the big splashy card draws for our commander later on. And then in terms of removal, we've got Negate. It's 1 in the blue for an instant. You counter target non-creature spell. We've got Sleep, which is 2 and 2 blue for a sorcery. And then you tap all creatures target player controls, and those creatures don't untap during that player's next untap step. So when you talk about removal, obviously this is not destroying or exiling or even returning anything to an opponent's hand. But what this does is it opens up the door, right? If we've got 4 or 5 creatures out with, again, massive toughness, say we've got like 25 total toughness on the board, we've got down our Walking Bulwark or our Assault Formation or something like that that allows that toughness to be converted into damage. If we get rid of everybody, if a specific player's blockers, then 1, we can attack in for a ton of damage, potentially just take them out, and 2, it opens the way for our commander's ability to automatically target our biggest toughness creature and draw the most cards. So this is going to be, a beautiful spell to cast in our first main phase before combat, open up a door to an attack, and hopefully swing in for lethal, and if not, at least get a massive card draw out of it. And then we've got Engulf the Shore. It's 3 and a blue for an instant. Return to their owner's hands all creatures with toughness less than or equal to the number of islands you control. So normally this is intended to be, again, a massive board wipe for everybody. Everybody gets their tiny creatures thrown back to their hand. But because all of our creatures are going to have exorbitantly large toughness, it really most likely won't hit any of our creatures at all. Again, we're running Simic. It's not mono blue, so we're not going to have 7, 8, 9 lands out there. We'll more likely have 4, 5, or 6 islands, which will be more than enough to hit pretty much every other creature our opponents control, but probably leave most of ours untouched, which will be as close to a one-sided board wipe as you're going to get in budget. I do think this is going to put some work in, though. And that brings us to the Thrift pick of the deck. For those of you who haven't watched before, the Thrift pick is not necessarily the card I think is the best in the deck. Honestly, it probably would go to the Walking Bulwark or Assault Formation in this deck, at full disclosure. But it is the card that I think, paired with the commander, paired with the strategy, paired with the other cards in the deck, that I think will have a super fun impact, and one that I'm really excited to see play out. One that if I have it in my hand at the beginning of the game, I'm pumped. I'm ready to go. I'm excited to see how this is going to interact, and to see how it plays out in the game. And the card for this deck is Ominous Seas. It's 1 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, put a foreshadow counter on Ominous Seas. You remove 8 foreshadow counters from Ominous Seas and create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token. And also has cycling for 2, which we're not going to care about. So in any card draw deck, this can put in a lot of work, create 1 or 2 8/8s throughout the game, which honestly for 2 mana is for getting value out of something you're doing anyway, right? Drawing cards is a really good rate. With this commander, it's honestly pretty broken, because we're, again, drawing. If it's just the commander, we're drawing 15 cards, which is enough counters for 2 8/8s off the bat. If we do that multiple times, like we very, very easily could create 6, 7, 8 of these Krakens throughout the course of the game if it isn't removed, which on its own should be enough to kill people. But again, because they've got 8 toughness, they still fit into our strategy of we want high toughness creatures, and creatures that we can yeah, we can get value out of when they come into play. So I'm going to seize. We're going to draw a ton of cards. I'm excited to see how it plays out. It's going to be really good including this deck. But with that, brings us to the end of the deck build. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, if you know of cards or think of cards that you think I might have missed, that I should have included, please let me know. The full deck list is in the description down below. You can go check it out. I hope you guys took some inspiration in building your own budget decks for this commander. Yeah, please subscribe, comment, like, share, all that good stuff. And until next time, stay safe and stay thrifty.